So we've talked about like how your Indiegogo's taking a long time on the fulfillment side of things. I'm curious how that works, being that you've gone that route. Most people kind of are figuring 6 months, and then like I get a product like a month or two after the campaign ends. This has been an ongoing thing now for a while, from what I gathered.
Yeah, I don't know about for every type of crowdfund, but we'll say comic book specifically, just because that's the one I know the best. Um, yeah, and I mean, I'd say since the beginning of people crowdfunding comics back in, I don't know when that started to become a thing around like 2013, you started to see it kick up a little more. Like it was a thing prior, but you started to see more people doing it. And in those days, if you weren't an established guy from a bigger publisher, just hitting $8,000 was like a huge deal. And now these days, that's looked at as like I might that'll be just enough to get through. I may even have to use some of my own money. So those days are kind of gone in terms of people looking at that as like a success. It's still good if you're new. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's bad. If your product's $1 a piece, that means you got 8,000 people to sign up. It just depends on a bunch of other variables. But it has been an issue.
Well, it all depends on what
Oh
you're
yeah,
defining
yeah, for
success
sure.
as for any
Just getting a
campaign.
page done is success.
Is this a marketing campaign where I want to get known, or is this like a thing where I'm trying to make money off of it? Sometimes it's worth it to take the hit to establish that brand and start building off of something with some people in there.
There's nothing that a person can be passionate about they're not going to have to make sacrifices for ultimately. I think every creative, no matter what field of creative they're in, knows that, especially after they've done it for at least a year. They all know this.
Well, my favorite story in that was I remember reading an article once that the Flaming Lips had in their business model that they had to sell 3 songs per album for commercial use to be able to afford going on tour because of how like expensive touring is for them. And it's like you do the business you do so that you can do what you want to do, and however that shakes out, you find a way to make it work.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're in this new era too, where like younger people are starting to realize that it's not you don't have to so much be worried about selling out. It sounds bad on paper saying the words, but the reality is it's called earning a living within the realms of the thing you excel at. And sometimes you're going to have to do it on things you don't necessarily enjoy, just like at a normie job where you're going to have to do things you don't enjoy every single day, even if you like your job. There's going to be rough days, good days, and bad days.
Well, I used to have a buddy who'd give me shit because like I'd play in cover bands and whatnot, and it's like go show me the part-time job where I can show up, make $20 an hour, and drink while I'm doing it and practice guitar. Like, if you find me that job, I'll take it, but that's this job.
And honestly, if you're playing in a bar, it's not that you can't throw your own songs in, but people like what they recognize in those environments. It's like, hey, I'm trying to make the people that showed up here are perfectly happy with me playing cover songs and making money at it. You know why? Because they all want to kind of get a little drunk and shake a little bit to something they recognize. You know.
Well, and you understand what your job is on a Friday night. It's to help people sell drinks. That's it. That's what your job is in that situation.
Yeah, your job's to give them a good time with your music, and if that's covers, that's yeah.
Maybe it's not creatively rewarding, but that's your job.
At least that's a realm where there's so much music. Let's just say, like between like classic rock and metal, that people recognize at this point that you can at least switch it up a lot. You know, there's so many songs. You know,
Oh, dude, I was doing Fleetwood Mac covers next to My Chemical Romance covers. I was having a blast.
that's awesome though. See, that's sweet because like My Chemical Romance has now had enough time that they're the epitome of their era and their type of music. Like they're always gonna they're it's like Metallica to metal. they're always going to be the guys that popularized it, even though they weren't the first. They made it global. My Chemical Romance did the same thing for emo, and they will always be able to. There's always going to be a whole generation of people that look at them fondly, no matter how old they get. And Fleetwood Mac. So,
well, my biggest frustration is that bar owners and the booking agents haven't caught up to the fact that that's where we are musically, and they're still booking the same Tom Petty tributes.
it's I believe that that's some boomer shit right there. It's like, oh yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I can play it, but I'd rather play the stuff that my generation likes, and we're the ones spending money in bars.
Well, that's what those guys don't realize. You're at that age now where My Chemical Romance is their Tom Petty. It's like that's what you grew up on. Now this is what these people grew up on. You need to realize that
that's Tom Petty's what my dad listened to, and I listen.
Tom Petty's so old, you guys. You don't even realize.
Well, that's officially oldies now. Like it's what's it? Nirvana became classic rock 15 years ago.
Dude, it's so weird. Like the oldie station here when I was growing up in Cincinnati as a little kid played like doo-wop, maybe the Beatles, and was as far as it went. Elvis, a lot of Four Tops, a lot of Motown stuff. Me too. It's great. But
yeah,
now it's all,
I love all that stuff, but
yeah, exactly.
It's precedent. It's classical
I turn the
now.
same station on now, and they're playing the Eagles, Fleetwood Mac, and Led Zeppelin, and I'm just like, and they're like, oldies, 103.5. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Fleetwood Mac's the oldies. Now it used to be groups from the 50s and the 60s max. You didn't touch the 70s. What is happening?
So we've been talking about Indiegogos and building an audience. What are the big things that you've found have been helped you be successful as far as building an audience goes in your career?
Well, it's kind of a mix of things. I was kind of in the right place at the right time in terms of when comic books was having their customer revolt. So when they were having theirs, I had just closed up my last comic book shop. I was over that side of it. It was like, you know what? This is no different than like working at Walmart. And I don't mean that in a degrading way. I mean that in like, I might as well just go work at Walmart and not have the hassle of trying to run a business at the same time, because it's the same job. It's just one place sells comics and toys and video games. The other place also has clothes and groceries. So it wasn't fulfilling is my point. It was awful. And it was one of those things where I was like, I'm not cut out for this. I'm too old now.